Today, a digital twin can actually tell you if the machine is vibrating, will the hole get drilled properly or not. I would say about 30% of the skills you have are taught in class. And the other 70% of what you know and what you do today are, as somebody put it, caught. They're not taught, they're caught. Even a small thing like a plate or a pen, which we use and which we don't think too much about, has an incredible amount of detailing and manufacturing. If it is not in that shape and if it is not in that particular function, you can't use it.
Correct.
You obviously can't use a feather to write today. And you have so many things like a gel pen, right? We don't think too much about it. We just go pay 10 rupees, we get a gel pen. But can you imagine the amount of detail that has gone into making a gel pen work for you every time that you pick it out and start writing without failure? So one of my earlier bosses used to say, it's not work-life balance, it is work-life integration. It used to be a term that used to bother me a lot. But over a period of time, I understand the wisdom of his words. And hiccups are pretty long when they hit you, so they could last months.
True. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Tech Beans. Today we have with us an exceptional guest, Sivaramakrishnan, who has spent more than 25 years of his career at the intersection of technology and business. An alumnus of IIM Calcutta and Purdue University, bringing a wealth of experience in driving operational excellence, strategic initiatives and innovative solutions, Siva has been a transformative leader in fields such as supply chain, manufacturing, business analytics, AI and machine learning. His impressive journey has seen him spearhead business development and delivery operations while achieving impactful results for his organization. Beyond his professional achievements, Siva is a data-driven thinker who approaches challenges through a systems lens. He is also a passionate communicator and a lifelong learner. When he's not shaping the future of technology, you can find him immersed in the world of music and arts. Join us as we dive into a conversation filled with insights on technology's role in shaping business and the future of industries. So welcome Siva, great to have you here today.
Thank you.
So let's start. So for the benefit of the audience, could you briefly walk us through your professional journey so far?
Sure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Pavleen, and pleasure to be here today. Like you mentioned, I have graduated from IMC. I have completed a postgraduate program in artificial intelligence and machine learning from Purdue, and it was the COVID year, so it was a distance learning program. I am basically an engineer, a mechanical engineer from Bangalore University. I've spent about now 28 years in supply chain. Started off in the ERP implementation space a long time back. Then grew in the supply chain strategy, supply chain technology kind of areas through Coopers and Lybrand, PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM for about 18 years. And then continued my work with another smaller supply chain company through a startup, and now I work with a very large multinational supply chain consulting company. So that's been my journey till now. Almost always in supply chain and very specifically in manufacturing. So as often as I could, I have engaged with my clients in the space of manufacturing. So that's been my journey so far.
Great. So any particular reason you chose this industry of supply chain and manufacturing?
Well, I am a mechanical engineer,
okay.
And that is one of the primary reasons for where I am today. Mechanical engineering is one of those fields of engineering which is evergreen, has a lot of potential in multiple areas of life, as it were. So practically every single thing that we use in our day-to-day, from an automobile to even a blender, has an element or two of mechanical engineering design. And that has driven me, even manufacturing management or operations management as it's called, is an area of mechanical engineering for me, right? So that is how I have built my specialization over the last several years.
Great. So Siva, reflecting on your earlier career, what foundational lessons have stayed with you throughout your 25 years in the industry? I guess you started in 1996.
Yes.
So,
is true.
and it's 2024. So, how has the journey been? What were the lessons that you take with you?
Very interesting. So it is a field where I would say about 30% of the skills you have are taught in class, and the other 70% of what you know and what you do today are, as somebody put it, caught. They're not taught, they're caught. So you have to have this as an experiential learning. You should be in the field, you should be in front of client problems, business problems, and very often a practical solution may not be a theoretically elegant solution, but a practical solution is what counts. And if it works and if it delivers something of meaning and value to a client, then you can sit back and say, okay, I learned something from that. So that's been one of the things. And it's a profession in that sense, you are always learning, right? So there is no chance that you can say that I know everything there is to know in this field.
Absolutely.
There is absolutely no chance to do that. So what you have is a starting point, and every client interaction, every meeting or every problem that you're given gets you something. And it's for you then as a student of the field to learn something from it, or to apply something you have known and see whether it works in this new context. So that's what has stayed with me. These are very basic orientation or attitude kind of things.
Correct. So the learning never stops.
The learning never stops.
Right. How have you seen the supply chain industry evolve in terms of technology adoption from when you started your career to now?
Okay. So that's a long duration.
Right.
I have seen manufacturing, specifically manufacturing, and I have worked a lot in the metals and mining industry, in steel in particular. And I have seen production recording being done in huge registers, right? And big accounting books kind of things. And they used to be carried from shop to shop. After you finish the manufacturing, you just carried the book to the next shop and said, look, this is my declared production for the shift. Now that's ancient, right? I mean, it's really, really, I don't know, the beginning of technology journey in India maybe. And I have worked mostly in India with Indian clients. So the digitization, if I were to use that word, at that time was putting all of these manual records into a spreadsheet. Lotus 123 was the technology at that time. So that's where we started. That's where I started. That's where I have seen clients use their technology. To a point where, I walked through some of my clients' manufacturing shops, like I was walking through an automotive shop floor a few months back. And there are robots everywhere. There are control systems that control the robots. The human being that used to do all the heavy lifting in the shop floor, a lot of it is now guiding, directing, making sure that the machines are doing their job properly. Right? So the potential that technology has given manufacturing in a sense is enormous. What used to be a hugely manual effort is now partly taken over by machines, and it has evolved from spreadsheets to ERP to planning systems to advanced planning systems to having industry special solutions for the industry in some manner or the other. And there are many examples that we can see about automation, about control systems, about flow control and various other things that are prevalent today that we take for granted. I mean, there are systems that I have seen with my own eyes which simply take a CCTV camera feed and tell you whether the process is running properly or not. There is no human being, something that even 10-15 years back was inconceivable. And today we are talking about AI in manufacturing. Right? We are talking about things like additive manufacturing. I mean, I have personally had discussions with startup founders in Bangalore, which are in startups that print human tissue, right, for treating burn victims or people in that have had accidents and so on. which was unknown, printing human tissue. I mean, I can't even get my head around that. So manufacturing has evolved in areas which we don't know. Some of it sounds like science fiction even today. Right? So it's an incredible progress that I have seen in my own career path, right? And I'm grateful that I have been witness to this, because it has also given me an incredible amount of things to learn and be fascinated about.
Correct.
And that's a gift. That's a gift.
So you had to adapt to the changing times, changing technology.
Yes, like I said earlier, if you are willing, if you have an open mind, then all of this is like a child in a park, right? Even now, I feel that joy when all I need to do is somebody has to take me to a shop floor and I see all these machines and I'm like, I'm in Disneyland already, right? So that wonder about how these things work, how do they all work together to make something meaningful for us?
Right.
Even a small thing like a plate or a pen, which we use and which we don't think too much about, has an incredible amount of detailing and manufacturing. If it is not in that shape and if it is not in that particular function, you can't use it.
Correct.
You obviously can't use a feather to write today. And you have so many things like a gel pen, right? We don't think too much about it. We just go pay 10 rupees, we get a gel pen. But can you imagine the amount of detail that has gone into making a gel pen work for you every time that you pick it out and start writing without failure? And that's where this whole thing, fascinates me. And that fascination, it is a fun thing for me. It's not work. It's, I'm just doing what I like to do, what I love to do.
It comes from your passion.
Yes.
Great. Siva, you've spoken about being inspired by the potential of machine learning. How do you see advancements in this field reshaping industries, especially in supply chain and manufacturing? And what excites you the most about future possibilities?
Yeah.
You mentioned some already, but...
Yeah. So, see, the thing is, it has been in existence. I mean, if you look at what we widely are talking about today in today's jargon, there are a lot of tools that have been existing already for several decades now. If you go back 30, 40 years, you will hear words like data control systems or decision systems and, expert systems and so on, which had elements of what we recognize in machine learning today. I mean, there were missing pieces, which is why it was not called machine learning in a manner. Right. But pieces of what we see today were already in existence, prevalence at that time as well. What we have done over the last 10, 15 years is the quality of the data that we get, the amount of money we have to pay for processing and storing all this data has just fallen through the basement, right? It's really cheap now to store large amounts of data, which if you ask me before the invention of the flash drive or maybe 20 years ago, if somebody had said I need to store 1 terabyte of data, I would be getting a hard disk the size of this table. And I have seen in a government organization a long time back when I was still a young student of about 16, I visited one of the most advanced computer labs in the country, in the aerospace business of the government. And they were pulling out a 5 gigabyte hard drive with a crane inside a computer lab.
Oh, wow.
Right? So they needed a crane to lift a 5 gigabyte hard drive. Now you don't even think about a small pen drive that you carry around for 32 gigabyte or whatever. So one is the potential has increased dramatically because things like computing power and storage have really become much, much more manageable, cheaper and so on. Because of which we can unleash new things on the field, like automation is, you can say it's not just automation, but I can get a feedback loop. So I can let the machine decide whether this particular automation is going the right way or is it going the wrong way, or should I take a corrective action which will fix it, or should I raise an alarm and get a human being to come and check, So if it is, for example, a crane that has a snapped cable, then you need a human being to come and fix it. It's not going to fix itself. But the machine can know enough to stop operating the crane, saying there is a failure in some critical part and I need to now stop, which earlier was a human being's job, right? And the human being may or may not have realized that there is a problem in the equipment. There are things like digital twins, again, they are old technologies, but what digital twins finally bring to the table is a feedback loop, is a closed loop, right? So if I say there is a machine and that machine's job is to drill a hole in a piece of metal. A human being used to see whether the hole is centered on the piece of metal, is the hole cleanly drilled, is there any burrs around it, and so on. These are typical manufacturing steps. Today, a digital twin can actually tell you if the machine is vibrating, will the hole get drilled properly or not, right? A human being cannot sense vibration because he or she will be operating the machine. They kind of, they are used to that vibration, so it kind of gets into the background of your mind. But a machine does not have any background mind. It just knows that the vibration is high or low and whether the product that is being manufactured will be a good or a bad product. Even at this very simple example, you can sense that the feedback and the closed loop that we have on these machines can actually make the machine produce better outcomes. And you are, in the sense, eliminating waste. Now, this is the thing that excites me the most. We have an abundance of things with us. We have so many things that we kind of take it for granted. Those of us who are privileged to live this life. There are a lot of people even in our own country who are not so privileged, who do not have access to the resources that we have, who do not have access to the opportunities that we have. So imagine a world where we make these products for them, the products that we enjoy on a daily basis, for them in their locality, in their manufacturing it in a decentralized way because we can. We can make a 3D printed motorbike. We can make a 3D printed house. I was visiting a science museum. I was in Europe recently, and I was visiting a science museum. Just for illustration, they had built a 3D printed wall, like a concrete wall. You wouldn't know it unless they told you that this is a 3D printed wall. Okay, so imagine the impact this will have on housing. Imagine the impact this will have on a lot of people that struggle to find shelter on a daily basis. What if we can manufacture things more sustainably for these people, not exploit the earth in a manner that is selfish for ourselves as a humanity, but in a way that coexists with earth, So all of humanity's history, we have been making things that give us benefit, ever since the first man cut a flint tool to cut up an animal or a plant for eating. We've been making tools. Manufacturing in that sense, if I look at that as a manufacture of some handmade thing, it's as old as humankind, right? We have been a tool-based civilization forever. We can't imagine human beings not using tools. And if we can use those tools in a way that benefits all of us equally, gives us opportunities equally, it's a much larger philosophy in a sense that I carry. This is a small part. The role that I play is a very tiny microscopic part of a much larger vision that I have, what we can be. And I hope with my small, almost irrelevant effort, some of it is achieved for a larger society kind of thing. That's exciting for me, right? We all need to have a purpose. And this is in some manner my purpose.
Okay, so Siva, what key learnings have you gathered in your entrepreneurial journey?
Couple of things. I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be accountable, right? You are in a position where your responsibilities are actually higher and not lower than when you were an employee or not in some manner an owner of a company. So accountability to your own employees, accountability to your investors, accountability to the clients, and obviously the market in general. But these take different dimensions. So when you say accountability to your employees, it could be things like paying their salaries on time, being respectful of the skills they bring and the kind of expectations you have of them, right? Very often we as founders believe that employees must have the passion that we have for the subject at hand. Maybe they are just looking for a job, right? So their interest and your interest has to match, and not everybody wants to learn to fish, as they say, teach a man to fish and all of that stuff. Not everybody wants to learn to fish. Like sometimes I want to fish, that's all, right? I don't care whether I'm catching it or I'm, buying it off a market or whatever it is. So there are employees who come with different aspirations even into a startup, and to be accountable to them and to be respectful of their ambitions, aspirations is very, very important. That's something that I have learned, and that alone in many cases is a differentiator of success or not. And of course you should be very cautious, very mindful of the investors and whoever you take along your journey. They are there because they believe in your idea. They want to support you, and that brings a kind of responsibility that you should always be transparent and fair in your communications with them, right? Everybody is in it for growth, and sometimes the paths they may want to take are different. So that is something that I have learned, to respect or to understand a point of view that may not be the same as what you have, right? And that's it's a very humbling journey. At the end of the day, being an entrepreneur teaches you stuff about a lot of things, very fundamental things about loyalty, about friendship, about handling money, about dealing with people, being more respectful, being mindful of the money that you have. We are all taught by our parents when we were young kids that you shouldn't spread your legs beyond how much your bed sheets cover you. But it is a real lesson in entrepreneurship. What you have, how much you can do, and how much you can grow is a function of how disciplined you are, and so on. And of course, at the end of the day, what really matters is clarity of thought, because if you have an idea, and everybody has ideas, right? Everybody has not one but many ideas. Not all the ideas come into reality or existence. That bringing an idea into life, taking it to the market, is partly art, partly science, partly discipline, partly creativity. So it has a blend of multiple things. So it's a very exciting journey, and it's a roller coaster in many ways. So being persistent, being persevering, I think is a very important trait of an entrepreneur. You can argue that all of this also applies in every day. Even a student needs to be clear about what he or she is doing and persevere even if they have failures. Yes, but nobody is bothered whether the student is losing money or making money, right? Which brings a different dimension of accountability on you. So if you're taking 100 crores from somebody and converting it to 10 crores after it's an old joke, right? How do you become a millionaire? You start with $1 billion and start an airline company, right? So somebody made this joke. So you can't be that. You can't be that. You have to take money, you have to grow that money, and you have an accountability to do that as an entrepreneur. So yeah.
Especially on days when you do face like hiccups, that's when it's the real test of your perseverance.
Yes. And hiccups are pretty long when they hit you. So they could last months.
True.
So yeah.
Right. So Siva, on a lighter note, we're aware that you're a passionate Carnatic music enthusiast and a violin student. I'm also a music enthusiast, and I know a bit of few instruments, so great to have a fellow musician here. How do you strike a balance between your demanding professional life and personal passions? And how does your passion help you rejuvenate and sort of recharge?
Okay. So one of my earlier bosses used to say, it's not work-life balance, it is work-life integration. It used to be a term that used to bother me a lot. But over a period of time, I understand the wisdom of his words. So being a student of music is not separate from me being a supply chain professional. That's the first realization that I've had. Also, being a student of music, I started very early in my life, has given me access to some mental models and connections that probably may not be available to a person who is not a student of music or a creative profession in a sense, right? And of course, Indian classical music in particular, whether it is Hindustani or Carnatic or a classical discipline of any kind, requires you to put in dedicated hours of practice, requires you to be a student of the craft, because you never stop learning. And these resonate with my professional values as well, right? So I do not say that I know everything that I need to know in supply chain or in manufacturing, because there are so many things, so many wonderful people that build the field, and you should be at every point in time looking for what is it that they did and how can you benefit from it, which is the same as in music. And I still practice several hours every week with the intent that at some point in time in the future I will go back and play concerts.
Wow.
So that's an ambition that I have for myself at a personal level. But the thing that music gives me is it's almost like having a bath for your soul, right? You come out of music, your practice session, and your mind is clear. Your mind is thinking of all the beautiful things that you did, if it was a good practice session. If it's a lousy practice session, then obviously you're thinking about why it didn't happen, what did I do, what should I do, and so on. And you commit yourself to doing it again. You want to get that right. You want to get that. And music at its very basic is the most simplest thing. There are 7 notes, and what is there, right? You just play those 7 notes in patterns. But the wonder that you get out of playing those 7 notes in those patterns is something that I still have. So when I listen to the great legends that in Carnatic, and I do listen to a lot, right? I spend 2-3 hours a day listening to music, even when I'm working or when I'm doing my exercises or whatever. The wonderment never stops. I might have heard that phrase that they played 10,000 times. But the next time they play, I still have the same childlike joy that I felt when I first heard it. And that's magic, right? For me, there are times when I'm just so stunned that I'm lost in that phrase. I'm so lost. I can almost say it's an ecstatic feeling. It's an ecstasy that comes because your mind and your heart are in that moment, and that creates a joy like nothing else, right? And for me, that is accessible so readily, because and in that sense, that's a gift, because I don't need to look at something great, go out and watch a beautiful sunset and all that. I can be in my room, I can listen to a piece of music which is few minutes long, and I am transported to another world. And for me, that is something that gives me the kind of mental state that I need to do better as a professional. So there is no balancing out. So it is integrated into what I do, right? So there are times when I have to write a white paper or do a research for a client, and there is music playing for me, right? And that gives me, and that's how I have been working. I mean, ever since I was in my 7th or 8th standard, that's how I've been studying for exams. So my mother used to criticize me, saying, why are you playing all this music? Go focus on your studies, which is how parents typically do this, right? But for me, that was the focus that I needed, right? And that music kind of concentrated my energy, attention on those things that I needed to get done. Okay. So yeah, so it's not refreshing for me because I do it after or before I start work. It is part of what I do, right? Very often everything happens together. And I'm quite blessed that it happens that way for me, because I don't think many people understand or do this the way I do.
So interesting to hear, because so many people let go of their passions because they feel like there's no time. Work demands a lot, but it's like you said, it's how you integrate it in your
right. And I think the point is, if you really want to do it, you have to find the time for it, right? Is it, I was hearing a speech by Warren Buffett a few days back, and he was saying, if I gave you an infinite number of chances, and he was talking about this in investment, right? I said, okay, he says, I'll give you a piece of wood, and let's say you have only 20 shots on that piece of wood, right? Every shot was an investment that you had to make, and that's all you got nothing more. How will you then take a decision? Each shot was an investment that you had to make, right? You will be a lot more cautious about exhausting those 20 shots.
Correct.
So you have to determine for yourself what are your shots in life, if I were to generalize that, right? Do you want to be a student of music? Does it do something for you? Do you want to be in supply chain? Do you want to be in accounting? Do you want to be in something else? And those are the things you should do. Those are the things you should do, because you get that one chance to do it, right? And if you're not doing it, then you're probably not living the life the way you want to live it, right? A lot of us do it. I do it myself, saying I should do more. I should learn cooking, for example, or I should go on a hiking trip somewhere. You know, these are all things that we say we want to do, but we have really no intent of doing it, right? It is there. It's like, yeah, okay, if I don't do it, if I can sleep a couple of more hours, I'll be good today, right? Very often that's where I think the difference between doing and thinking comes, right? That's where you know, a difference between an idea and an execution comes, right? You have an idea, you don't want to act on it. You say, yeah, and you feel good about it, and then you say, I'm not cut out for that. I don't have the time for it. But no, you will find the time. If it is important for you, you will find the time, because it is important. Correct. Nothing more than that.
So Siva, we're nearing the end of the podcast. So my final question to you is, for all the budding IT professionals that are watching this podcast, what would be like the top 3 tips that you would give them to sort of grow in their career and develop further?
Actually, it's a little bit of philosophy, but let me start with something tangible. So we have to build credibility, right? As professionals, I mean, if you take an everyday professional that we encounter, like a doctor, why do you go to a doctor? Or why do you prefer to go to a doctor versus a doctor that you don't prefer to go to, right? That doctor has credibility, right? He or she is an expert at the field, and they are known by a wide number of people, word of mouth and so on. He is a good doctor. He takes, you know, his medicines worked for me, something like this. Second is empathy, right? You go to a doctor because the doctor understands your problem. He or she is not rude. They are not dismissive of your problem, saying, if you say I have a back pain, they say, no, what back pain, you're 20 years old. You know, that's not a doctor I want to go to the second time. And of course, they should be an expert in the field and so on. So being credible is a combination of a few things which start very simple. Start by saying, suppose you tell your manager that I am going to make a document for you by tomorrow. 99 times out of 100, you should get that document to your manager in the final form by tomorrow. That is being reliable. Number 2, communication. If somebody sends you a mail or somebody calls you and they say, I will call you back or I will respond to this, 99 times out of 100, you have to respond to it. You can't have mails sitting in, I see today mailboxes which have 2,340 mails unread. I'm wondering, what are you doing, right? People are taking time. I mean, you get a lot of mail where you don't have to do anything. They are just marked for your information. Leave those alone. But you will have a fraction of that 2,300 odd mails that probably need an action from you. Respond. And when you go to clients specifically in consulting, because that's where I am from, when you go to clients and you listen to them, do not dismiss their problems, you know, just listen to them. They may have something to say that you didn't know about their work, right? And to say that, look, I have come here because I know something, or I know your boss, you know, which is the worst form of entitlement. And we have seen that, right, in multiple road rage incidents. Do you know who my uncle is kind of question, right? That you know my boss is of no consequence to the conversation that we have today. And lastly, very important, is you leave your ego at the door when you walk into your office every day. You have to, because there is something out there that you have not seen before that might come your way, which will only be blocked because you have an ego saying, I've seen this before. It's okay. It might be the 100th time that you are seeing that particular scenario or situation at your work, which could be very mundane. You know, how do I process this particular expedited item? Somebody has come saying there is an urgent order, please process it, which is an everyday occurrence in many offices. It's fine. You look at it and you treat it with the kind of diligence that is required for every urgent order, right? If you say, no, this is an urgent order, I have seen hundreds of these before, this is what I will do, then maybe you are missing a chance to learn. So building a career takes all of these things. Credibility is built by reliability of what you do, reliability in communication, saying when you come back, I will come back to you, or I will say no, I can't do this, right? You close the loop. I think that is very important, and I set these as basic targets right at the beginning. So unless you're credible by being reliable, by communicating clearly, unless you're willing to learn, unless you're willing to keep your ego aside and say, okay, there is something here that I need to know. What is it? Very often you will find it, and you need not think about who's the junior fellow intern who's going to teach me something. Okay, you just sit and learn, you just sit and listen. Sometimes they will teach you something in work, sometimes it will be outside of work, but you will get something. And one final thing, I mean, this is probably a warning more than anything else, is health and family are more important than anything else, right? A lot of young professionals believe it doesn't matter in the long run how important you are in office, how great your document looked, or how great you made a presentation. Of course, it's important from a professional standpoint, but you need not kill yourself, by stressing out yourself, by working hours and hours and hours, staying without sleep. The damage that you cause to your own self because you've spent time doing something that is not all that important is something that I would put it out there, because we all start like this. I've started like this. I have worked day and night. I look back and I sometimes wonder, why did I do it, right? And I have stories and stories to say, because I was traveling all the time to the remotest part of the country, and what I have done, how I've eaten, how I've slept, and what it cost to me in terms of health, which I can't, I can't go back those years and repair all of that. I think it's important. I have missed so many birthdays and anniversaries that I don't even remember, right? Today I wonder, maybe I could have done better, right? The only people that really matter and miss you when you're away is your family, and it stays with you, right? So in the job that I have been doing, this is one of the most, I would say, the hardest parts for me to kind of accept, deal with, that I am traveling, I'm on the road a lot of times, and it still is a point that I wish I could change, but I can't, because on the other side, as a consultant, I have to be in front of my clients. So yeah, this is what I would say. Take care of your health, take care of your family, be credible, be reliable, be honest, be humble. These are all, it's almost philosophical, right? I'm not saying anything that is specific technically, go learn AI or go learn ML or learn Python or any such thing. Yeah, you will learn. You have to learn, right? You learn hard stuff, you learn soft stuff, but at the end of the day, you will learn, right? This AI ML distance learning that I did was a gift to myself when I turned 50, right? So I could have done anything, but I chose to learn. And I wrote 10,000-15,000 lines of Python code, having never coded in my life before, right? So you will always find something, right? Why should I learn Python when I'm 50? I don't know, it felt fun, I learned, right? So you sit and learn, and something will come out of it. And this is one thing that I have noticed all the time is, if you invest in yourself, it will always pay off. Whether it pays off today, whether it pays off 10 years from now, it will pay off. But invest in yourself, invest in your health, invest in your family, invest in your skills, which could be soft skills or hard skills, but continuously invest. Never stop investing, because the biggest investment that you can make in your life is on yourself. It's as simple as that. And if you do that, you will be richer for it. You won't have money maybe in your bank, but you'll have a more contented life. What's more to ask for? Everybody has to go one day. You're not carrying your bank along with you. So, sorry if I'm sounding very philosophical about it, but that's what I think I should put it out there.
Thank you so much, Siva. This was so insightful, and I have taken so much with me. I'm sure the viewers have too. Great having you here.
Thank you.
I hope you had a
My pleasure.
good time as well.
Yes.
Thank you.